Right here. Right here. Right here. Right here. Yeah. You want him? Yeah. Welcome back to Redneck Tech Podcast. I'm pretty sure this is episode 123, and we are in, by far, the nicest studio that we've ever been in. I'm looking at Ryer.
I'm looking at Caleb.
I'm looking at Ernie Santana.
Hi.
And I'm looking at Greg Ritz. We've got 4 people on the podcast this time, and this one's kind of going to be really fun for us because we are in Ernie's studio, which we've been talking about. Ernie is possibly going to be doing a podcast that we're super excited about, that he has got these set up to do it. I'm looking for Jamie somewhere.
Yeah,
Jamie from Rogan's podcast, but
I mean, you're in the seat where young Jamie would sit.
I am. I feel weird because this is where Ernie's supposed to sit. I'm sitting in Ernie's chair.
Well, I'm learning how you're doing this. So,
well, Ernie, thank you so much for, first of all, letting us come down and letting us steal your studio. And we are down here filming some pickups for Huntmasters. We're going to be doing a show with Ernie we're going to call Miami Vice. And I'm going to let Ernie introduce himself because I wouldn't be able to do it justice. So, Ernie, take it away.
well, I don't know if I'm up for a full bio on myself, but I'm just I love bow hunting. I love my family, and I love cars. How's that?
That describes you pretty well. So,
But what people don't know is Ernie is a passionate Cuban as well. So if you haven't picked that up yet, if you haven't seen a picture of Ernie, I will tell you he will talk a lot with his hands on the podcast that you guys won't be able to decipher.
And the food that he's had us eat the last 2 days.
Incredible. But if there's one word to describe Ernie, it's definitely passion.
Yes. And it's been so much fun to get to know you over the last couple months. I haven't got to spend as much time with you as Ryer has, and of course not as much time as Greg has over the years. But you and Greg met how many years ago on your separate farms in Illinois?
What was it, Greg? Like 3 years ago?
3 years ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago. So you guys, they don't border each other, but they're pretty close to each other in Illinois. You have a farm up there that you've been hunting for years, and Greg obviously has a farm up there he's been hunting for years. So Greg has Huntmasters that we produce, and then Ernie's going to be on the show a couple of times. And this is actually, we're down here filming the pickups that are kind of telling the behind-the-scenes Miami Cuban heritage of Ernie, which has been way out of the box for Ryer and I. It's such a different vibe for us to get to come down here to Miami Beach and the cars and the palm trees and the white sand beaches and the Cuban food. It's exactly what Greg said. It's not what you think of when you think of a hunter, but Ernie's a hunter to the core, which is really, really cool. And we're down here trying to tell the best version of that story that we can in our little meek little way of running around and filming some cool stuff in Little Havana and running around Ernie's house and doing some pickups and some talks and stuff and working on a potential YouTube series that we're going to be doing that's going to be a lot of fun. So what I wanted to get into first is, Ernie, you've been listening to Redneck Tech for a while, haven't you?
I have.
How many have you listened to?
I think I'm going on 3 or 4 episodes.
3 or 4 episodes?
Yeah.
Well, because the first time that I knew Ernie was listening to the podcast, I guess we will get into turkeys,
Okay.
Anybody who listens to the podcast knows I don't advocate for shooting turkeys with a bow because I just think it's very anticlimactic. And I get a text from Ernie that says, what's wrong with shooting turkeys with a bow? Because you only bow hunt now.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's only bow hunts, and so he was kind of, I don't know, partially offended, or it was like, well, why not shoot him with a bow?
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why isn't, and I was trying to figure that out, but I just said, let me just text him.
Well, then you've got Greg, who's like, not too excited about turkeys. Greg is not mad at turkeys at all.
I think this would be a perfect time for Greg to impart onto us the nugget of wisdom that you shared the other day when we were sitting around around the fire.
A Gregism? Is that what we're going to call it?
It was the original. I think that's the original Gregism.
I don't know if it's the original.
I mean, I think it's
It's just my philosophy why Southerners.
I want to know why you think that Southerners are so ate up with turkey hunting.
So let's define Southerners, right? We're talking Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi.
Yeah.
This is,
right?
This is going to get offensive, folks.
Yeah, this will be R-rated.
Southwest Missouri.
Right, Southwest Missouri.
Pender talking to you.
That culture down there loves turkey hunting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, every single day, wake up in the morning, chase them every day, fistful of tags, call for other people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the only time they don't hunt them is when they go to church, and normally that's 11 a.m. service, so they can still get in the woods before they go to church.
Well, they're calling their brother-in-law, their mom, their aunt to see if they filled their tags because they're going to fill those for them too.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
but there's a reason for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. When you travel north, like you said, southern Missouri, right? There's two things happen. You lose interest in turkey hunting, and you gain interest in whitetail hunting.
Yep.
Because everybody in the South, they're so frustrated that their deer season was horrible.
Yeah.
They didn't see any deer. They didn't shoot any deer.
Yeah.
Or if they did shoot a deer, it only had 2 points.
Yeah. He is not wrong.
Excuse me. I don't appreciate being called out like that, Greg.
Right.
About my deer.
I think Huntmaster
You're supposed to be
viewership
supportive.
just went down.
You're supposed to be supportive of what I did.
Well, I would
call my 14-year-old if he wants support.
Yeah. We've gotten into some philosophical questions over the last couple of days that have been really fun conversations. But yeah, it's so funny to hear Greg's take on turkeys, Ernie's take on turkeys, then my take on turkeys. They're three very different viewpoints.
And I'm just caught here in the middle of it.
And by the way, I'm the only one north of the Mason-Dixon line. Let's just call it
that's
what
right.
it is.
Yeah.
Although I don't think a lot of people would consider this the South.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Okay, you're really gonna make him mad now.
I'm a real
in
Southerner.
Miami.
I'm a real Southerner.
Don't look at me.
No,
Caleb's the one who's born and raised. I was just trying to start a conflict.
I was born way southern, much more southerner than you are.
Oh yeah,
this is true.
This is true.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but no, you're skating on thin ice there, Ryder. You better not say stuff like that.
Hey, Caleb, would you consider Miami the South in the most stereotypical way?
In the most stereotypical way, no.
I mean, geographically, it is in the South.
Yeah, but you're from Colorado. If we really want to get technical on stereotypes, we can start talking about Colorado and California too.
Well, you can talk about Colorado. You can't really stereotype me into California.
A little bit. You did live there for a long time.
4 years is not a long time. It is now. It is that I'm 25, but like when I'm 50, 4 years is a throwaway.
Anyway,
very true. Except
moving on. So
after you're 50, you want every single one of them you can get.
This is true.
So last podcast we did with Greg was, when did we do that? Was that November, October? So we talked about
first week in November, I believe.
It was whenever me and
we did it in
those,
the cabin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did it in the cabin because it was me, you, and Greg, right?
Yes.
So, and you suggested that we needed to do a follow-up.
We did.
On after the season was over and we started getting into the edits, which we've kind of not dipped our toes. We're a little further than that into the edits. And you kind of wanted to do a where are we now? And kind of whether we're not fired yet or not. So I guess we'll jump into that because we've finished the first full season. Now we're doing pickups, which we've got, 2 or 3 more different. We got to go to New Hampshire. We got to do an Illinois pickup. And that was it, right? Mm-hmm. That's the only 2 we got left. So, I mean, we're 90% there, 95% there from first season of taking over production. And I'm happier now than I was then, especially after that first edit, because I'll be quite honest, I was super nervous about the first one being really tough to get to the place to where you were happy with it and where we were happy with it. Because, I mean, we had some huge shoes to fill. I mean, the show is excellent, and it sets a really high bar for production, for storytelling, for cinematography. And when you called me about it, whatever it was, a year and a half ago, I went, oh man, that's a lot. That's a big stick to swing. And I kind of want to get your take on where do you think we're at?
It's interesting. The show's format is dramatically different than virtually all other outdoor shows. I'd say Meat Eater may be the most similar from a storytelling and the dynamics of producing the show, because it's not run and gun, right? It's just not capturing the moment. And that's obviously why we're here in Miami, devoting our time to build Ernie's character and his story, which we're going to spend 4 days to produce something that's 4 minutes.
Yeah, maybe.
And I think that's one thing that's lost on a lot of people who sit and watch a 30-minute show, is how many hours actually go into the filming, the editing, the production. I mean, months.
Yeah.
For one single episode. And everything is very well organized. You guys did a great job on this trip with the pre-production, and I've seen that evolve over time. So I'll give you guys an A-. It's tough to get A.
I was about to say A+. I'd like to see what.
Let's put it this way: your rolling 90 days didn't start over, but on the organization and execution against the plan.
Yeah.
And I think that's excellent. And then modifying the plan over time.
Yeah.
Because
rolling with the punches.
You have to roll with the punches. We came into this year saying we wanted to do 6 whitetail episodes, which I've never done 6. But I drew Iowa this year. And we knew that Ernie was going to support us with a couple whitetail shows. So we had the ability, but that's tough because we did all of that.
Well, in your format, it's really tough.
But we did all, correct. We did all that in 50 whitetail days.
Yeah.
We didn't hunt for 100 whitetail days. So in 50 whitetail days, we filmed 6 episodes, which is crazy to think about.
Well, it's like, I felt like every time, as soon as the season started, was whatever, felt like a week later, you already had, 2 deer on the ground or 3, something like that? Crazy, early in October?
2.
And I remember we even kind of hinted around that fact, like, okay, let's not jinx ourselves.
Yeah.
Don't even talk about it. Let's just not talk about it because, hopefully this continues. And it's really nice early in the season to get stuff on the ground like that to take pressure off. And now you've essentially got the whole season to either tell new stories or develop better stories for the ones you've already got, which is really nice. And it's cool with the whitetail thing is always fun, but it's really challenging with the 365 concept where essentially we're not telling a linear deer story, like deer shows up, deer walks in, deer dies, recovery. It's got everything to do with what led us to essentially growing, producing, and making that deer on the farm, and then the scouting that took place, the hunting, the encounters, and then coming back to why we set stands this way. It's the entire, I guess, life cycle of what it takes to harvest sometimes one particular deer, one stand, one field, one farm, whatever the case may be. And I know we talked about that at the beginning, to where we wanted to make sure that those stories were not singularly focused on just a 1 week hunt. They were everything leading up to and after, the time and planning, because that's what drives Hunt Masters is the story. And the story's not there, then the show's not there. It's not what it's supposed to be without that story. And it's been a challenge. Like, Ryer, what are your on that first edit? I know it took us longer than we would like to take, but what's your kind of thoughts through the first edit of Hunt Masters?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I can definitely parrot what you both have said. Is it's an entirely different show than anything that I've really cut in the past, and the amount of data or footage that we have, and the nature of the story really kind of overwhelmed me at first. And I think I spent a decent amount of time just trying to figure out a workflow and an organizational system that would be robust enough to handle all of that going forward. Because in the past, on a show where you show up and you film whatever happens as a single shooter, producer, one-man band, and then you take that back into the editing room, and then you just basically cut what happened, right? I mean, sometimes there's a little shifting of, let's take this morning and put it here. Let's take this evening and put it here, so that, if you kill early, your kill isn't, in the first segment, because if that's the only kill you get, it's really got to be in the 4th segment, or your climactic kill is at the end of the show to kind of preserve that structure. But it's really not a whole ton of shuffling around. It's a very dump it all into Premiere, and open up day one, morning one, boom, cut it. Okay, next one, boom, cut it. With your show, Greg, it isn't like that. And so I wanted to develop a system so that it would be super conducive to being able to pull footage from, let's say 3 years from now, we kill a deer that we've been watching and looking at since this season or last season, and every year, we see him randomly here and there. I wanted to build a system that would allow me as an editor to go back and pull up all that footage without having to just go search around for it for hours and hours and hours, and have that at my fingertips so that when we cut that show, we have all that historical footage of the animal.
Yeah, we finally had that.
Yeah, and so I think that was the first big hurdle. And then, of course, with any show, trying to figure out what is the heartbeat of this show, what really drives this show, and what really what is Greg looking for as well out of this show, because ultimately this is Greg's show, and when I cut it, I want it to be something that meets your goals, Greg, and is something that you're proud to put your name on, proud to be a part of, and is representative of your brand. And so it's always kind of the first edit for me is always tough, because you have an idea from talking to you about how it should look, but of course you got to take all of these ideas and then put it into something. And so that first one is almost like you almost feel like you're cutting blind a little bit, because you're going, okay, well, I like how this goes, but this may not be how Greg wants it, or let's do this, that, and the other, and then you send it to Greg and get the feedback. And so I think there was a lot of pressure for that first one, because of all of the challenges and new things that we had to do leading up to it.
Well, and it's cool too, because it's the style in which the show is done. Sometimes we can even get into edits and say, hey, this might even look better this way. Mm-hmm. Or we can kind of try and, because obviously we're not going to cut like other people. We're going to have, the show's got its style.
Right.
But we can do things that kind of put our own little spin on it, or our own little flair, whatever that may be. And that's where we enjoy doing it. When we can we can do it within the mold, but also have our own small signature on something to where, whether it's song choice, whether it's pacing, whether it's, regardless of what it is. But that's what makes it fun. But I want to talk about now, like, Ernie, you filmed some hunts last year, but this year you filmed virtually all your hunts in Illinois, right?
Oh, yeah, both of them.
So how have you – so kind of give me your take on being in front of the camera in the tree. Like, that's not something you've done a whole lot until recent years, right? Kind of what's your take on that?
It's somewhat intimidating at first, but you really have to put it out of your head. Yeah. It's just you can't think about it. Yeah. Just, you got to feel comfortable in your own skin and do what you do, and don't show off for somebody else. Well, just be true to yourself.
Well, you did something this year that would be extremely hard for a lot of people, and that is Ryder had to call you off a deer.
Oh, yeah.
But you also committed early in the season to where, you and Greg talked, and you're like, look, if it's not good for the show, then I won't shoot. I want to make sure that what we're doing is hunt masters, and that takes a commitment, because if the kill's not good, if the footage isn't great, then we can't do it, because it doesn't fit the mold of the show. So by making that commitment, and I've only had to call like 2 or 3 people off my whole career. And I remember Ryder called me and was like, I had to call Ernie off today. And I was like, really? I was like, how did that go? He's like, dude, he was fine. So tell me that story.
Well, look, first of all, there is a fine line between trying to be a part of Hunt Masters, mm-hmm. or the opposite is you're a Viewmaster.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because you're you have to go out there and kill.
Yeah.
But I feel no pressure. I think it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Look, it's a lot better to be in the tree with somebody else that you can talk to.
Yeah.
That isn't on social media while you're hunting, right? That's another issue with Ryer. But no, it's I think I did okay. I think we enjoyed it, which is the most important thing. And I just love the camaraderie that our whole crew has. I mean, it's just a wonderful thing. It's really a very refreshing for me to, be on so many solo hunts and traveling all over North America alone. And now, well, I can look forward to being with my friends and enjoying.
Well, essentially, you feel a part of something even bigger than what you were used to doing, and it's there forever. That's what I love about it, And I'm always 99% of the time I'm behind the camera, but I've got all these things to look back on. Like every story I can tell somebody, like I've got a video, I got a full-fledged full hunt of this if you want to see it. It's versus me saying, hey, yeah, this big deer came in and shot it, and I was like, no, I can show you the footage. Even though I was behind the camera, it's like, it's so special, and we've talked about this 1,000 times. It's doing this job and being a part of this industry has been such a blessing, not just because of this is what we get to do every day, but it's the people that we've met, the places we've got to see. Like Ryer went and bought some, you bought some like Little Havana and like some different trinkets today. He always tries to buy something from all the cool places that we get to go. Mm-hmm. And what is it you said? Something about a camera? Amazing how many places this camera's taken me?
Yeah. It's kind of crazy when I think about it. The camera is almost like a passport to these places and experiences that I would have never had access to before. And I think I can say that probably for 90% of the things that I've done since really choosing this career path, because like I had never hunted. I had never done like farm work or ranch work or really traveled around much before this job. And since having the camera, like you just get to go and do all these things that you just never would have,
Yeah.
I mean, all the places that I've been able to go just through hunting, all of the different species of animals and ecosystems and states and environments that I've been able to just go and see because of the camera, and all the things that I've been able to do or been brought along on to be a part of because I have a camera to capture it. And then all the people that you get to meet from all over the U.S., all over the world, with a huge variety of life experiences and pasts and stories. I mean, it's really kind of a beautiful thing.
Yeah, for sure. I feel the same way.
Yeah, I can see how it enriches you. It enriches all of us, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I was one of those guys that back before I started doing this, like travel wasn't important to me. I was like, nah, I can see that on Google. I was kind of a homebody. Like I didn't really care to travel. And then I got into doing this years ago. And, first time I went out west, I was like, holy crap. Like this isn't like the pictures. This is better. And, then I got to go to the Yukon. Then I got to go to South Africa. Then I got to, do all these things that just because of this job. And it's like, now I want to see everything. Now I've got a bucket list of things that I haven't got to do yet. It's like, this is what I want to do next. Like I've never gotten to go to New Zealand. I want to go to New Zealand real bad. I've always wanted to do the Hawaii trip that we're talking about doing this summer. Like those are things that I've always wanted to do. And if it weren't for this career path, why not ever get to do them? And it's cool now because I've talked about it before, but my dad almost kind of lives vicariously through me and my trips now. Like when I get home, he says, oh, where'd you go this time? What'd you do this time? And he thinks it's so cool, like, which is cool now because my dad's always wanted to do two things. He's always wanted to see Montana. He's always wanted to go fish in Alaska, and he turned 60 this year. So I'm taking my dad to Montana to turkey hunt this spring in May. And then I don't think I'm going to have time, but I'm going to try and take him fishing in Alaska at some point too, because that's two things he's always wanted to do. So I'm going to try and take him to do that. But Ernie, how is your perspective? How has your perspective on the production side of things changed? Like, how much of it have you done before? But now that you kind of see the inner workings of how the product is made, like how has that changed?
Sorry about that, but boy, it's so much more nuanced than I thought.
Yeah. How so?
It's just so layered. It really is so comprehensive. We Sorry about that.
You're good.
This is not coronavirus. I guarantee you that. Yeah, I've had a cough for the past 10 days.
Oh man.
But anyway, back on topic. You know, when I heard you talk about the deer, and we've seen him several times.
Yeah.
And one of the things I thought about was, wow, he's almost making it seem really easy.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah.
And, you know, we get to see some deer a few times, and then most of the times we get surprised with, you know, with the bucks we see. But a lot of, you know, I got to say that a lot of the production side, back to your question. Oh, wow.
Get it all out there.
Sounds like I got pneumonia. But no, you get to add so much context to the story.
Yeah.
And that's amazing, because a lot of times I've been in the woods and I you know, something happens and I lose it, right?
Yeah.
So then it doesn't stay in my memory. We've lost. It's gone.
Yeah.
Who knows how many moments I've been through that I wish I could, you know, just have documented.
For sure.
And that is the beauty of what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get a moment, an experience, a memory, and expand upon it.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that is fascinating to me.
That is to me too, but I also feel in the same vein of what you're saying, almost on the TV side, you're a little bit handcuffed at the same time, because you've only got 21 and a half minutes to tell that story. Sometimes that story really needs an hour, or sometimes that story only needs 10 minutes, you know, but you got to fit that story in that framework. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it's like, okay, the show would be better if it was 15 minutes, or I really wish we had an hour to tell this story.
Oh yeah.
You know, and sometimes there are, you know, part ones and part twos, but you know, you think about a movie, a good movie. Well, now a movie's great, but now think about movies that are trilogies. Now think about series, you know, that are 8 seasons long. You can't tell that story effectively in a 2-hour show. No. You definitely couldn't tell it in a 21 and a half minute show, you know, and that's the only part for me. And I know Greg is going to agree, because Greg's a pure storyteller. Yep. He loves stories. Sometimes a story needs more.
Well, if I may interrupt where we're going with this, but one of the best examples of what you just said is Linus.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to tell that story a couple of years ago, and it's so much more than what we were able to to tell. Isn't that true, Greg?
Oh, no question.
Yeah.
I mean, but at that point, though, we weren't able to document Linus, right? So really, Linus's history was in your trail camera pictures and in your mind and your experiences. And I think what Ryer was saying is so true on the whitetail side, especially going back 2, 3, 4 years. Those are the richest stories that we have to tell, because it's those experiences, those encounters, those memories, those letdowns, those hopes, those fears if the deer are going to make it. And I mean, this year, you know, 2 of our best deer unfortunately didn't make it on my farm. Yeah. You know, they were harvested by the neighbors, and they were both Boone and Crockett deer. They were mature deer. I personally chose to let them go, and happy for the neighbors that harvested them, but that they're story elements that have a dead end, fell off a cliff, that aren't going to be revisited.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll never see the light of day, unfortunately. And what a story it would have made if, was that that really awesome deer underneath the scrape?
Oh, Riser.
Yeah. Oh, my Lord, what a deer.
Or going back to Linus, though, had we had 2 years of history of your experiences if we had a camera with you, how much more rich would those stories have been?
Yeah. Well, and to me, there's so many stories. Like, and I think about, I mean, we've all seen hunting shows, you know, every version, good, bad, and ugly. The best stories are the ones that you have the history and the documentation, and, you know, follow the deer for 3 to 5 years, whatever it was. And those stories are incredibly hard to tell, because I think about like Lee and Tiff, you know, when we used to do Lee and Tiff forever, and obviously you're really familiar with how their show's done too. They have deer that they follow, and they're very, fortunate, worked really hard to have farms to where they can manage those deer to where they're probably not going to get killed by a neighbor. They live there, they don't leave. So, they're pretty safe most of the time. Now, they do lose deer to neighbors, but they can tell a story like a Gnarls Barkley that they've got. How many years of footage do they have in Gnarls?
Oh, yeah. Like you say, it would take 4 hours to tell the true story of Gnarls.
100%. And I'm sure Lee would love to have seen a 4-hour version of that. And maybe one day he will tell a 4-hour story of that. But, I think Gnarls ended up being, was it just a one episode?
One episode.
One episode. So 21-ish minutes of a deer they had 5+ years of footage of.
Right.
And that's, and at the same time, we see that story, or we see a deer that just shows up, somebody hunting over a feeder in Texas, and I enjoy those too. But at the same time, it's like we've seen deer hunts in about every way you can see them now. Now I'm trying to think of like, okay, now how can we tell the story of a deer differently? I don't have the answer to that yet. But it's like, okay, how do we tell the story of this elk hunt or this deer hunt or this, ram hunt or this turkey hunt, whatever it is? Now, how do we change that narrative? And I think it's what we've been talking about the last couple of days is we've got to add value in other ways.
That's right.
And if we can add value, and that can be something from teaching something, imparting wisdom, learning something ourselves, the management side, the conservation side, whatever that may be. And there are people that do that well, but I want to figure out how to do it better. Yeah. I want to figure out how to put my thumb on that and be like, okay, I want to die on this hill of telling the best version of that I can, and having the time, the energy, the budget to do those things correctly. Because, that's always the limiting factor in this, what we're doing is like having enough time, having enough budget, having enough all these things to be like, okay, I have this grand vision, but I have this much time. Or I have this grand vision, we have $100 to do it. Yep. There's always one of those, there's always some limit, and that's and me and Greg have talked about this in the outdoor industry. It's just, it's hard to get some of these companies or some of these other shows to, to find value in those things. And, obviously I understand, we understand good production takes time, costs money, and great stories. I mean, look at movie budgets. I mean, holy crap. And but that's kind of what I'm looking forward to, is trying to find and continuing to add value to these stories.
I do want to add something to this, because I know a lot of the people listening to the Redneck Tech podcast are videographers, are people who are passionate about the industry, are other professionals, right? So I think imparting your wisdom is every shot has to be brilliant in my mind. So there's roughly 400 edit points in a Huntmaster show. There may be 370, could be 420. There's about 400, okay? And everyone in my mind has to be perfect. So when I'm looking at other people's shows, throwaway shot, non-value added, didn't care, forgettable, right? That's how I look at, and I grade the quality of other people's work against mine with how many things were brilliant.
Yeah.
And I rather take the time, like right now we're filming, this podcast, one, because we enjoy doing it, but two, the lighting is not good to get the bow scene that we need to shoot tonight.
Yeah.
Now we could have just shot the bow scene, wrapped everything up, and headed home.
Yeah.
Nope. So we're literally taking 4 hours here to dump footage, go through quality control tech, do this podcast, so we can go film something at the appropriate time. And I think for a lot of those people who are listening and want to learn something, is you can do something, and then you could do something right.
Well, what is it you said earlier? I'd rather do it right one time than have to do it twice.
Correct.
Yeah, but it's just like you said. It's like we came down here for 4 days for what's going to end up being 4 minutes, maybe. Most people aren't willing to put in that time, effort, money, any of those things.
Right.
But what you just said about like watching shows, I can about not watch shows anymore. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I like to rip on Ryer because he and I have a yin and yang relationship going on here, and I think I paid you 2 compliments this trip.
Well,
I think you have,
right?
But he paid him 2 compliments, but I gave you one of the ideas.
True. Well, he did reset his rolling 90 days though. He did stub his toe once.
It was the shopping cart shot was my idea. I'm like, hey, we haven't done the one shot you have to do in a shop in a.
That's true.
Okay, so then
I did take it and make it my own and did the low angle.
Okay.
Now, you weren't originally thinking of a low angle. You were thinking of a high angle following.
I would have done the low angle when I got the cart, though.
Well, but you didn't. I did.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, we do. I think we have a fun relationship, Greg.
we do. And one thing I do want to say is Ryer is always chasing the perfect shot.
Oh yeah.
Now sometimes
down a hill
sometimes his ADD doesn't bring the dog back very quickly. But I do respect that, right? Because you see something and then your brain says, I can do this better.
Yeah.
And then you always have to balance efficiency and time, with that. But it's just not checking a box for you.
Yeah.
Right. And I think if you want to be really good in this industry now, because there are some brilliant, really good shooters today.
Oh, yeah,
and photographers.
For sure.
I mean, just look at all of the pictures on social media just from the shed season that people took versus last year. Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because there's a group of people, you're one of them, we're the young up-and-comers who are pushing the envelope for better.
Yeah. Yeah, we
the never-ending road to world class.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and it's cool too. Is exactly what Greg just said. Is there's always somebody nipping at your heels,
mm-hmm.
and if you're not learning, improving your technology, improving your processes, I put so much value in the pre-production process, and I enjoy the pre-production process. I enjoy sitting down and planning. I'm a planner.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to something big. Like if it's something off the cuff, I can pretty much roll. I can roll with it too if I have to, but I love sitting down and saying, okay, what story are we trying to tell? What's our audience? How long do we have? Where's it at? How much budget do we have? Like you give me those parameters, and I love that. And I'm also, and Ryan will tell you, I'm an idea guy. I love coming up with ideas. Some of them are good, most of them suck, but I come up with ideas. And that's what I enjoy. But that is something that's not valued at all by a lot of other productions. They don't take that time on the front end
mm-hmm.
to plan. They just pick up a camera and start shooting. And sometimes they come back with great stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a difference in getting really pretty shots that have no framework, that have, I can go out and get pretty shots all day, but if they don't fit into what I'm trying to the story I'm trying to tell, or it's a bunch of pretty shots put to some pretty music, which I've talked about 1,000 times,
mm-hmm.
that's not hard to do.
Right.
Like if you just want pretty shots to pretty music, I mean, that we can do that in an afternoon. But if we're trying to tell a story, which is what everybody should be striving to do, is to tell a story, it takes time, and it takes planning, and I probably spend before I ever start editing, I'm usually spending at least an entire day planning something before I start editing it if I want to take on a big edit. You probably spent more than that on this first episode, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to, and I think that it's super important to take the time to do it because it's going to save you a lot of time in the long run, and B, I think it's really the only way to tell a good, impactful, emotional story.
Yeah.
If you don't plan it and you just run into it and start cutting, I think 2 things will happen. First, there's an instinct that I have, and probably other editors have, but there's a default way of doing something. And if I were to just sit down and get a bunch of footage, I'm going to cut it the default way. And the default way that I would cut that, I'm going to make a good edit. It's going to have a story, but it's not going to have the rich story, and it's rich. It's not going to have the rich story, and it's probably going to be fairly linear. and it's probably going to be fairly standard. And it's going to be based on kind of what I've done for 5, 6, 7, 10 years in your case, something like that, right? We've all got a default way of doing something. And I think when you're approached with a project that necessitates a different approach.
Nice word.
Thank you. You can't just run into it and start cutting. You have to really take the time to think about what it is that you're trying to say, what the story is, and then what do I have, and where do all these puzzle pieces fit? How do I arrange them? And that way you can start cutting, and you have this framework, and you can cut to the framework, and you're cutting towards a vision instead of just running on default mode.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you make something that's different, and I think that's how you make something that is impactful.
Yeah, but
and I think it's important to want to do that.
Well, I don't think people set aside the time to plan it all. They're just like, they get excited about something, they just want to go do it. They just want to go. It's like a deer hunt. You know, you've got a trail camera picture of a deer, you just want to go out there and hunt him.
Yep.
Versus sitting back and saying, okay, what's the wind? Where's he at? Where'd he come from? You know, because you might not want to hunt him where you got the trail cam picture. You might want to kill him before he ever gets there, because where he's at, you can't get to him to kill him anyway. It's kind of the same thing. It's like, you know, if you don't take a step back and say, okay, how did he get there? Why is he there? You know, it's the same thing with any decently sized project. You know, sit down, plan out, and in our case, we're not making the video for us. We're making it for a client most of the time. So it can't, not always what we want it to be. It's got to be what they want it to be too. And sometimes that's harder for us. You know, like I've talked about how Dudley's edits are hard for me because they're very talking heavy, and they're all informational, and they're long. Yeah. To me, his videos should be 3 to 5 minutes, and then they'll end up being 14. And it's painstaking for me to do them just because it's not my style. But that's what his style is. That's what he wants, and that's what he gets. Sounds
like me, though.
What do you mean?
It takes me 30 minutes to say a 30-second story.
Oh no, Ernie. I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit again. I think you're doing just fine.
I think it's 40.
Yeah. Well, the hand movements take effort, right?
They do. No question.
But you know the other guy that I've filmed just a couple people in my career that are just straight up natural on camera. One of them was Jeff Foxworthy, and you know he talks with his hands all the time. Like if you tied his hands behind his back, I don't think he could talk. You know,
I have the same problem.
Yeah, well, don't suppress that. I think that's part of your personality. That's part of your persona, is you talk with your hands.
Yeah,
I don't see anything wrong with that.
It's part of my culture.
Yeah, well, sure, for sure.
That's why we have social distancing, by the way, so nobody gets injured at the filming of the show.
Get their eye poked out by Ernie.
I want to hear Ryer's side of the story about him calling me off Mario.
Yeah, we didn't get the full story of that. So what happened, Ryer?
Or do you just want me to read the text exchange?
You guys are texting about this? I would like to know. I mean,
did his 90 days, was that in question on this one?
I think whether he is ever going to make it home was in question.
See, I've never heard this before. Now I feel very attacked in this room.
There's a bunch of property they could just hide you on in Illinois.
We would have took him to Iowa.
And we've got equipment. We've got equipment to do it.
Yeah,
true. Man. Ginger goes missing in the Midwest.
First of all, that wouldn't be a headline because nobody cares. Nobody would care. Caleb would be like, where's Ryer? He never came back. Well, all right. Looking for editors. So, and I'll be honest, I think in the moment, I made a decision, and definitely afterwards, I was probably right along the lines of you. Like, I may not have made the right decision. So I still don't 100% know. But what had happened was
what happened was
so this buck was coming in. I've got my standard 18 to 200 on, and I'm terrible with distances. How far was he?
The first time?
Yes, when he just had stepped just barely out.
30 yards.
Really?
Well, he came from my left.
All the way out there?
Well,
the first
all right,
time.
35, 40? Can be further than that.
I thought he was further, but anyways, I've got the 18-200 on.
Which should have been plenty of lens for that, but okay.
That's why I'm saying I think he was farther, but I was fully zoomed in, and I didn't feel like the deer was small in the frame.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like
10% of the frame, 20% of the frame, 5% of the frame?
Like 15 to 20% of the frame.
Okay.
And I was like, I feel like it needs to be bigger in the frame so that this kill shot is really impactful. And so I told Ernie, don't shoot it, switched over to center scan so that I could get the extra room, got it on the deer, pulled focus, and as soon as I did that, he walks off.
Mm.
And so I was like, oh, crap. I just messed up big time. And I was like, okay, so we'll never see that buck again. And now I've got to go back and explain what happened, and I'm probably fired, and I'll never work in the industry again. And, you know, I guess I'll just have to go back to California or something. But then, like, 5-10 minutes later, buck comes back from the other direction, and he just runs through. He's chasing a doe.
Yeah.
He runs through. There was no chance of anything. And then he comes back from the same direction, and he's closer this time, like right up on us. And he's just walking left to right.
And now you're in center scan, and he's filling up too much of the frame.
No, I'm good now. I'm prepared now.
Okay.
And he's walking. I don't have him. Ernie does.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying I don't have him. I don't have him. I don't have him. I don't have him. Ernie's on him, on him, on him, on him, on him. And he gets to a point, and I say I'm on him. Now Ernie's lost him.
Yeah.
Ernie's lost him.
Of course he has.
Ernie's
Perfect.
lost him.
That's how it always happens.
Right. And then he steps out, and I think there was a brief moment where we both had him.
Yeah.
Moment came, went past. I mean, it was split second, and then he steps to where his head and his vitals are covered by a bush and then a telephone pole. And then I had to tell Ernie that I didn't have him again. And then he walked off. So
on a scale of 1 to wanting to strangle him, like where were you at mentally there, Ernie?
Well, I mean, bottom line is I take every one of these moments, you know, alone, right? And I'm perfectly comfortable.
Yeah.
He was one of those borderline deers that I really thought that he was 4. Greg seems to think he's 5. So obviously I made a mistake.
Yeah.
You know, we were watching, we had some footage of him in the summer, and there were times where I really thought he was 4, and then other times he looked better. But I strive for hunting mature deer.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want to have a story.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with having passed him, honestly. If we never see him again, it's a moment that we lost. Right? Yeah. But I'm perfectly fine with not punching a tag. I need to have a connection.
Yeah.
And
well, in that moment, I mean, that moment is lost. That is slated for the show I'm cutting right now.
Well, no. I mean, you know, in terms of punching a tag,
mm-hmm.
if he's gone completely, right. Somebody else shot him, we'll never see him again.
Yeah.
We'll never know. And we won't have a finality to that, what Greg likes to have.
Yeah.
But we're okay. I'm okay with it. And I was perfectly fine. I don't think there was much of a fraction of a second that I wanted to strangle you. So it was just, you know, momentarily.
Just a little bit. What about you, Greg? What did you think about me in that moment? When you heard
obviously, therapy is working for you, Ernie.
Yes.
So keep going.
Yes. I'm on step 10.
Well, that's what I wanted you to. So Ernie, name all the deer that you want to go after villains, which I love that.
Yes.
So go through some names of the deer.
Well,
over the years.
There's Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
There's Linus, obviously, from the movie Lost.
Yeah.
Or from the show Lost.
Yeah.
There's
I told you Bane. You haven't named one Bane yet.
We haven't named Bane yet.
We're gonna get more.
But
this year we're gonna name one Bane.
Yeah, he's next. He's gonna be a good candidate. But you know what the issue is that I have I have to make a connection. I love these animals so very much.
Yeah.
And I take so much. Okay, this sounds really weird, but I like to think I take care of them in a way where it's, you know, we're not connected.
Yeah.
But I'm their steward. I take care of their habitat.
100%.
I make sure their water's clean. I make sure they've got, where to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And not feel social stress and not feel, chased and things of this nature. So it's kind of odd. It's a strange dynamic that only a crazy Cuban from Miami could probably, develop. But I call them, every one of them has a villain name. So I can associate a level of anger with him. So when I see him and it's time to, to draw my bow on him, there's nothing but laser focus on that one particular hair that I want to hit. And I thought that's kind of weird.
Well, no, I love that because I've heard some other, like Fox Ridley's philosophy was anytime a deer would come out that he wanted to shoot, he'd always tell himself mentally, like, this is not going to happen. He's not going to come over here. He's not going to come close enough. This is never going to happen. It's never going to happen. He's like, and he would always talk himself off the cliff of he's never going to come over here because then he would never get worked up because he'd get buck fever really bad. Mm-hmm. And he would tell himself that until it was like a moment, like it's happening right now, make the shot type thing. He's like, because if I didn't, I'd freak myself out. So I think it's different for everybody. Everyone has a different process.
Yeah. So when a deer comes in my kill zone, and I consider, everything depends on the weather, depends on how he's acting, but anything honestly inside 80 yards, he's dead.
Yeah. So
I kind of like jump from excitement of seeing, a target to the point where after the arrow's gone, and I assume him dead. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So when I see something, I have to make a mistake in order for that not to be the case. Mm-hmm. And it's for me, it's worked. I actually don't know the secret sauce to making that, to continuing that, but so far it's worked. And I've been more than more so than average. I've been good on the draw.
Yeah, well, there's a room in there that proves that. Yeah, that's something which I've done enough hunting behind the camera to where I can talk myself through things. But when I was first hunting, man, I'd get tore all to pieces when I had something in front of me. It was bad. Like I would make a shot. No, I don't know if it looked through my peep. I don't know anything happened. I don't know if I hit the deer. I blacked out.
Yeah.
Like that was me in the early days of bow hunting years and years ago. And now with experience and being in that moment so many times and having to be in that pressure situation with a camera, like now with a bow, it's like, okay, this is easier than, I think it's that to me. You still have to execute a shot and that's really hard. But in terms of the pressure, there's so much less I have to think about with a bow in my hand than there is with a camera in my hand. Mm. So, I've been there enough now is where it's like, okay, all right, execute a shot, which I love bow hunting too, except for turkeys. I like shooting a shotgun. So how do you guys feel about this season coming up?
Well, I think we have a lot of good hunts planned. You may actually get your wish to go to Hawaii.
Well, that's if my wife doesn't kill me first for not bringing her. Because I told her that there was a hunt to Hawaii, and she said, are you going on that? I was like, I don't know. I really want to.
From a whitetail standpoint, Ernie and I have taken advantage in the evenings here to plan out our food plot strategy, new stand locations, new property development, because seems like we're always expanding the footprint.
Yep.
Second year in Missouri, so we actually have a baseline to work from, and there's a lot of work ahead of us.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who watch the show, they see the highlight reel.
Yeah.
Right. No matter how well we tell the story, it does not fully compare to the thousands of man hours, because it's a team effort by everybody to make this happen.
Yeah.
And we're talking about thousands of acres in 3 states, and we love it. We're passionate about it. We can't wait till the soil temperatures rise and the ground dries out so we can start breaking the ground. But this year we have tree restoration programs going in. We have warm season grasses going in. We've got the Veil mulcher going to be spending weeks and weeks and weeks creating new habitat and new areas for hidey-hole little hunting plots. So we've got a really extensive list. The good thing is Ernie has a little bit more time on his hands this year.
I do.
So he's going to spend a lot more time in the driver's seat than a week here and a week there. So the labor cost goes way down because he's going to be, the guy at the stick this year. But we've rolled over on both of our farms a lot of good deer.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited. Last year was an amazing year for us. And I got to tell you that adding the Missouri property was one of the greatest things I've ever done. I mean, it was an amazing piece that we were just lucky to get, really. But to be able to, I feel confident right now that I've learned enough of that farm to where I can almost guarantee you that if I have an opportunity this coming season, we're going to bring back a really nice deer.
No question. I think the framework is set, and I think a lot of it has to do with how do you balance your time between states, and that's always the challenge for all of us, because you don't want to overpressure one farm or overpressure one deer, but yet there are peaks killing times. And there's only so many times that deer is killable.
Exactly.
And if you're not there, if you're not ready, you can't kill them. You may have missed the one or two windows that you have to kill them.
Yeah.
You want to tell the folks about that buck that walked up on us, on the four of us?
Oh my gosh. Standing at the bottom of the stand.
Yes.
That one. So Ernie was hunting the majority of the day, and he texted me. He goes, "Hey, I really feel we need to tweak the stand location. These deer are traveling closer to the railroad bed. And I think, maybe we just need to move this 40, 50 yards to be more in the zone."
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I'll come over, around 12 o'clock and I'll help you. We'll be really quiet. We slip in. And wouldn't you believe, as soon as Ernie gets down out of the stand.
Oh, Murphy's Law?
Murphy's Law. He taps him with his shoulder. He goes, buck, 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 buck. And I'm looking at a smaller buck, a 2-year-old deer.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking to myself, okay, we see a lot of those.
Which was like 10 yards away from us.
10 yards. I mean, like close. So obviously this is in the middle of the rut. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the deer are using the travel corridors. Their common sense is going through. The wind was good. And so I'm looking at this deer, and Ernie's grabbing his bow, and I'm like, I wasn't making the connection. Like, well, I don't, it just didn't make any sense to me.
Well, he was in Missouri. You never know. I mean,
well, exactly. What I didn't know
crazy.
was the bigger deer, which was definitely 160 plus.
Oh yeah.
Heavy horned, long tined, framey deer, dark horned. And so when the younger deer turned and ran, he was following the bigger deer. And then, of course, my eyes came out of my head, and I'm like, oh, my God. Like, that was a big deer. But that goes to show you luck and bad luck, right?
Yep.
Kind of reside in a hunter's mind every day.
Well, and that moment really taught me a lot of lessons, really. First of all, we have to look at this from a camera's perspective, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I called Greg. Hey, I really think we got to relook at this, and because all the deer were coming off the hill, coming at us, looking at us. So we were a bit skyline in that tree. Mm. So I think it's an awesome tree, but it's just too open. But so it was Rob, Aaron, Greg, and myself. And the buck, I had the angle on him, so I saw him moving behind the tree or heading right toward us. Rob was between me and the tree, so he didn't know anything was going on. Aaron was to my right, looking at the little deer, and Greg was turned around looking at, talking to us. And then when I said, shoot her, and I grabbed my bow, Aaron and Greg were looking at the little deer, and I remember Aaron saying, "Are we doing this?
Are we going to do this?
Are we going to shoot this little deer?" It's like, what? What's going on? And I was just looking at the big one.
Yeah.
But my God, man, what a deer.
Yeah.
It was just a great buck.
So while we're on the subject of Missouri farm, you got some turkeys on that place?
Oh, yeah. They're actually more like pterodactyls.
Oh, yeah. You going to go up there and turkey hunt it?
Hell yeah.
Okay, good. You're going to take your bow, though, Ernie? Come on, man. You need to break the shotgun out for at least once you're in Missouri.
All right, you know what we're going to do? We're going to rethink this turkey head. I really like turkey bow hunting turkeys. It's such a challenge. You have
it's a challenge.
You have such a small window of opportunity with these birds, and if you don't get it right, you're going to injure the bird. You're not going to get them.
Yeah.
I remember that. Remember, what is it? 2 years ago, Greg, we had that huge tom. It was a zombie tom, basically.
Zombie tom.
Yeah. So he comes in. I was hunting this funnel, and this beautiful, huge tom comes in and roosts 2 trees away from me. So I'm looking at this, and I'm like, oh, man, I can't believe he came in right behind me. I never heard him. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I hear when he was going up the tree. And I'm not going to shoot a deer. A turkey, on the roost.
At a tree.
Absolutely. I don't even know if it's legal. It probably isn't. But that's not what I
think it's legal. I don't know if it's morally right, though.
Well, it's just not right.
Yeah.
It's just something you don't do. But and I'm texting Rob and Greg, and I'm like, I'm gonna wait here until after dark. I'm gonna come off this tree without any lights, and I'm just gonna sneak out of here. I'm gonna come back tomorrow morning. He's gonna come off the roost, and I'll be able to shoot him. And he did. The following morning, I was there. I came in without a light, went up the tree. Sun starts coming up. He's just up there, and I could have brought him breakfast.
Yeah.
That's how close he was. And he finally, he starts, gobbling, and he starts moving, and I can see it.
Yeah.
He comes down, and won't you know, he walks the opposite direction. And all of a sudden he turns around, and he's coming right in my shooting lane. And I got him. He's in my kill zone. I go to full draw. I felt it was like the perfect shot until it wasn't. So this turkey just starts flopping, blah, 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 with a dead roll, right?
Yeah.
And I grab my phone. I start texting Rob, and I texted my family on a group chat. Rob and Greg, Manny. I told everybody, kill the monster tom. 10-yard shot. When I put my phone away, this bird gets up. He starts doing the zombie walk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. So I grabbed by the time I grabbed put the arrow on the string, and it was too late. He had walked away.
I've seen a bunch of them do that with a bow.
It's
crazy.
It's terrible.
You don't hit them in the right place. It's just, they're tough suckers.
But he was dead for like 15 minutes until he wasn't.
Until he wasn't.
It's just crazy. So then he walked away, and I got off the tree as fast as I could. And I was, stalking him. I didn't know where the hell he went. And I almost stepped on him. And he saw me. He takes off flying. Never saw him again.
Dang.
I looked for 6 hours for that damn bird. Did not find him.
Dang, dude.
I hope he made it.
You shot him with a shotgun. You'd have found him.
Yeah. Look at that stare he's giving. He's just giving me attitude now.
If you just
the other disdain,
put some new tree stands up, did some habitat improvement, you would have had something that would have paid bigger dividends later in the year.
Wouldn't Crockett possibly? Right?
There we go.
Exactly. They don't make 180-inch turkeys.
No. All right.
So, I don't think I wanted to give Greg more time to talk about your thoughts on how the season went production-wise and the edits, or the edit right now.
Ooh. Oh, is this like the second take here on a Redneck podcast?
Yeah. Because we got into the rabbit trail, and then Caleb let me talk about things, and I went too long for that.
Letting you talk was the problem.
I'll obviously tell the listeners how the same thing that I told you guys. The first episode you guys did, I was hoping for a B or B minus, and what I got was a B plus or an A minus. Cinematography is great. Edits were great. And really the things that we talked that we could improve upon were stylistic. Mm-hmm. They weren't technical. We weren't having to reorganize a lot of things. It was, so you guys did I think a few things. Number one, you curated the content in season well, very well. 2, we shot to a storyline and you stayed to the storyline. And 3, you obviously had prepped and understood my brand and my voice well enough to put it together to represent that. And I think by the time we get to episode 3 or 4, I think your edit time's going to, be cut in half at least, because now you're going to understand, like in your mind, you'll be able to see it. Mm-hmm. And I think really a lot of this is a testament. And again, for the people listening, I think they need to understand this. It's a team effort. Mm-hmm. And obviously, Ryer and Caleb, are at the helm, but so are Clint and Aaron, who were really instrumental. And then obviously mm-hmm. Clay came out for the girls shoot. Mm-hmm. But all of the planning. So if people really understood the whiteboards and the amount of notes that we take, how do we open the show? Do we have an opening shot? How do we transition from this? Just like today, we were talking about how do we go from, this skit to this skit, right? Mm-hmm. What's the bridge scene? And what are the visuals? And each one of those gets built out. So when you get to edit, you have those notes.
Right.
Yeah.
Which have to be super important on the trips that you weren't on. Obviously, the trips you were on, you have a firsthand experience on that. Right. But a lot of those shoots you weren't on. So, I mean, you really rely on the work that those guys put in to organize that storyline and those thoughts, which is a monumental task.
Yeah. And Clint really helped a lot on that, on organizing a lot of that, because I didn't get to do as many shoots as I'd like to. But Clint really laid out the shows and understands the storylines well. So that was a big help too. But and
none of you guys had worked on the show previously. Mm-mm. So I think as we went through the season, it became easier because I think we were getting ahead on what needed to be done, as opposed to, okay, what did we get done today, and did we fill up any buckets?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we did some cool stuff along the way too. A lot of cool images, a lot of really cool video. I can't wait to see it all.
This whole season, obviously, coronavirus impacted our ability to do a lot of the cool hunts.
Yeah.
We didn't go to Kodiak Island, right? We didn't go to Hawaii. We're going to replace that trip. We didn't go to the Yukon. But inch for inch, I had my best whitetail season ever. Mm-hmm. Ever. I mean, I set my goal of I wanted to shoot at least one booner with my bow. I wanted to harvest 4 deer, and I wanted to maintain. I wanted nothing under 160. Like that's a really big
tall order.
Stand. Right. Exactly. All on, do it yourself hunts on property that I've assisted or manage. Right. So these aren't guided hunts, right? On known deer. Mm-hmm. And we checked every one of those boxes, including my largest 8-point to date at the end of the season.
Well, I mean, I think we'll take credit for some of those. I mean, a couple of them, yeah, for sure.
You should.
Yeah. I mean, those deer, we kind of summoned them. Like, I'm just kidding.
Spiritually,
yeah.
As I remember, I don't think you hit record on any of those kills, but that's okay. You're great support.
I know, Ryer. Yeah, Ryer. And how many did you end up filming over there? 3 or 4?
So, total over the season for the show, I think I was a part of 4 kills.
Yeah.
Where I was with whoever shot the animal, and then probably a couple additional as recreating the
recoveries and stuff.
Recoveries.
Oh,
and the hunts.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think 4.
Yeah. That's
I mean, it was.
We had a great season. We were truly blessed with the coronavirus and how compacted we had to produce everything.
Yeah, and looking forward to this one, guys. Thank you so much. I think we got to go. We actually got to get work done now. But I thank y'all for taking the time to get on the podcast. And Ernie, thank you again for letting us use this awesome studio.
Oh, and thank you for coming.
All right, guys. Thanks. Bye.